This bonus series was launched in cooperation with Six Swiss Exchange. It focuses on the companies that completed the first Sparks IPO Academy course, a 6-month fast-track IPO training program designed for high-potential scale-ups.
One day on a Saturday morning, the ring bell at home rings, and Carlo was at the door, and then he told me, I saw in the newspaper that you have nothing to do. What about joining, helping me out?
Welcome to the Swisspreneur Show, a podcast about startup stories and learnings from experienced entrepreneurs. Here's your host, Sylvan.
Michele, a very well welcome to the Swisspreneur Show. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Sylvan. It's a pleasure for me to be here and contribute to entrepreneurship in Switzerland.
You're a guy from Ticino with a big passion for entrepreneurship. Before we talk about your multiple projects, I actually want to start with your personal background. You studied food science and biotechnology at ETH in Zurich. Back then, was entrepreneurship on your mind at all?
Well, I grew into it during my PhD thesis. Of course, at that time, we are talking about 1989, 1990, there was not a process for people that wanted to start a company. But at that time, just during the PhD thesis, I thought, well, there might be some opportunities to translate my work, my knowledge in biotech, actually into food. Mm-hmm. Then with a few friends, decided to start this company called SAM, Sensory and Analytical Measurement was the first name, SAM actually we called. Nice. A spin-off idea at that time consisted in a feedback from my Professor Fichter, that told me, well, if you want to start a company, I think it's a good idea. Here you have a table, here you have the phone. You can stay here 3 months and then make sure that you make some money and you can go and grow the company outside of my institute.
Wow, that's a very pragmatic way of getting started, right?
Yeah, it forces you to be very efficient from the beginning and look at every single cent. Because then I found a partner, we found a little bit of money, but we are talking about 50,000 starting capital. Yeah. So that's how I started, 1990.
And what happened then with your first venture that basically came out of ETH Zurich?
Yeah, I remember that sitting at the table and thinking, okay, actually I have an idea, but as I was a student, I was a PhD scientific worker. I work in a field that was not really my business proposition that I had in mind. There was, of course, some similarity because the idea was at that time to deliver predictive modeling to the food industry. Today, of course, this stuff is called something else. It's called AI or machine learning or whatever. Right. But at that time, it was predictive modeling. So basically, out of biological system, use similar algorithms to predict consumer behavior. And yes, and I was there sitting and, okay, but how do I sell? How do I sell now? Right. Of course, there was no iPhone, no phone, no mobiles. We had a, how is it called, a Macintosh, these little boxes with a minuscule screen. And yes, I just produced a presentation, print it out, bind it, and then started cold calls. So the first company that I called was Cope. and then Nestle, and then the other company. And of course, at the beginning, I had, of course, a tough time, but it's something that then at the end makes you get every day a better person. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, one of the key elements was to find the right partners. I found a partner that also then invested and was my co-shareholder in the company, in the industry. He opened a few doors. And then we had a partnership with an American company. So that's where then things started to get going. But I started as a one-man show and then grew over the years the company. At the end, with a multiple site, we were at 8 different locations in Europe, about 60 people. Yeah.
That's an impressive growth journey. Yeah. I love that because of multiple aspects. First of all, the very pragmatic start, as you mentioned before, ET saying, here you have an office, here you have a phone, let's just get started. Now you have to make it work to actually pay for your own bills. But then also for you to basically take like a second education, doing the cold calls and just jumping into the cold water and actually learning how to sell. I think that's a very powerful lesson to be learned there.
Absolutely. If you want to be an entrepreneur, you have to be a salesman first.
Yeah, I agree. Then later on, after that company, you also switched to the CEO role of multiple companies like Navy Boot or Orel Füssli Italia. And how do you actually manage this transition from having your own company to becoming the CEO of companies that you didn't start yourself? Was that easy for you?
Well, first of all, when I decided to switch, I was about in the middle of my business career when I decided to change, right? I could have continued another 20 years, the same business, grew it, maybe pass it in the family. But I decided that in life I wanted to see other stuff. So that's when I exited SAM. Actually, I exited with an exit which was selling to my partner. And then the plan was, let's do something else. Let's do something else, from consulting, from working in B2B business with big partners. We had a lot of clients worldwide, mostly food, fragrances, a few partners also in the shoe business, like Nike at that time. Then I wanted to go into another world, in the world of B2C, business to consumers. And retail, of course, is the place where one can go. By chance, at that time, I met Bruno Bencivenga, the owner with his brother of Navy Boot. We liked each other. And then that's how it then started, working with him and helping to build up the brands, the company, with the focus, in my case, on the outlet stores. And then, as usual, you make a plan, but life tells you something else. There was this transition that happened. And of course, it was such a good transition from the seller side that has to be done. And that's when I changed again. And since I like challenges, I went into the book business. First of all, because I love education, I love learning. It's one of my passion to learn every day. So books is the place to be if you want to learn. And I like the challenge because, of course, the book business at that time, and probably now today is not better, is a very difficult place. Amazon has a big competitors. But managed to build up together, of course, with partners, because you never do it alone. A company that then merged with Orel Füssli, which was, of course, made a lot of sense. And the company is still there, is still growing, so probably something went well.
Absolutely.
And then I changed again because I wanted to change again.
Before we talk about the next change, I just wonder, after your CEO experience, did that feel any different to you from being employed as a CEO and running the companies by technically being the boss, right, of the company, versus having your own company that you actually co-founded and started? Did that feel different in any way?
Yes, it is different on one end, but on the other end, you always serve the shareholders. And if it's your company, you serve yourself.
Right, yeah.
And if you have another company where you are CEO and maybe you have also a minor stake, but still you are serving shareholders. And that's what you have to do as a CEO.
Did you like one more than the other, or are they quite comparable?
Oh, I like everything I do.
Okay. Then you did the next switch, the next transition. So you sold a few companies, you've been CEO of a few companies, and today you're basically focusing on being an active investor and also an entrepreneurial board member or chairman in some cases. So what role do you prefer in that regard? You know, being the founder or the operator, a CEO, or the investor today?
Well, what I love and I like, and probably you got it a little bit looking at my CV and my life, is diversity. I don't like to be in a corner and having a purely linear career. That's why change and going large and not deep is one of the fundamentals of my way of operating. So I love my life. I like every day. That's independent what I do. I put my energy, my passion, my fire. And so I like everything I do. And if I don't like it, I don't do it.
You change again, right? You move to the next thing.
Yeah, exactly. I went back into more agile companies. And this is the place where I am now. Where I will be tomorrow, I can't tell you tomorrow, not today. But that's the way I am and the way I like to operate. And I would encourage everybody to be as large as possible in the mindset, as flexible, as open as possible, and then things happen.
Is it fair to say that you followed your curiosity, that you always wanted to learn something new? As you mentioned before, that this is so important to you, and therefore also chose your projects, your companies to get involved in that way, that you wanted to learn and grow as a person?
Yeah. This is being curious is key. Is key. Being curious is key. Key is also taking risks. Of course, you take risks with this. If I would have a linear career, I wouldn't be here today talking to you guys. And but this is part of it. And then, of course, nurturing relationships with people. Then you come into contact with this situation. You do an analysis, and then you decide and you go. And then you have to be also a little bit lucky, of course, because you make also mistakes. And I did mistakes, but I learned out of them.
Right. I want to focus on one of the companies that you're involved with today. You joined Securecell in 2016. It's a high-tech life science company with a focus on biotech and medtech. So first of all, how did you get interested in Securecell? How did that get on your radar, on your map?
Well, it's a story that has to do with relationship. Actually, the founder, Carlo, was at the Institute of Biotechnology mostly in parallel with me. So we knew each other from a long time. And one day on a Saturday morning, the ring bell at home rings, and Carlo was at the door. And then he told me, I saw in the newspaper that you have nothing to do. What about joining, helping me out to accelerate growth and to set up the company for the next stage? And then we talked a little bit, and we agreed. That's one of the venture that I am following right now. At the beginning on a mandate base, and since a few years, actually 2 years now, mostly full time.
What actually sparked your interest? Why did you decide to go and work with Securecell?
Because of a few elements that are key in my evaluation matrix, the market and the purpose of the company, which is very noble, and it's a high motivator to develop technologies that help saving lives at the end. The company is a supplier in the biotech industry. The company has also a venture in the diabetes type 1 field. And this is one of the motivation. Then it's a technological company that was run more with engineering perspective, and I saw an opportunity to help to scale, which is what's happening at the company right now. And then I liked the people, I liked the settings. Yeah, and we agreed that I could contribute.
And did that also mean, on top of your now full-time role, to make an investment in the company?
In Securecell specifically, not. I have another plan with them, a mixed incentivization plan. Okay. I didn't invest myself in Securecell.
And now let's also talk about the problem that you solve. You have already said you have multiple product lines or even like streams that you focus on with Securecell. I think one of the key products is Seraccess, if I pronounced it correctly. Can you talk a bit more? What is that and how do you actually contribute with Securecell?
It's a very innovative technology that helps patients with diabetes type 1 or type 2 where there is no insulin production with something disruptive. There are solutions for those patients today. There are so-called artificial pancreas solutions from a few providers on the market, but they don't really solve the problem. They just migrate the problem into the future. You have to talk to patients that have this technology, and then you will understand why. From a technological point of view, the main reason is that the actual solution, they don't work in the blood. And nature is here the guidance of everything, and a working pancreas, of course, interact with the blood directly. And the technology of Securecell has the ambition and the vision to really work online, delay-free into the blood by measuring real-time blood sugar and delivering in real time the right amount of insulin to have the patient in the right range of blood sugar 24 hours out of 24. Yeah. And this doesn't exist today. It's a big jump. It's a big technological challenge because you have to be able to work with micro amount of fluidics. You have to be able to work real time into the blood. Of course, is something that not everybody will adopt, but the business case is quite clear. By people that will adopt this technology, then the case is very interesting also from a financial point of view, and that's the challenge. Giving really a benefit and added value to patients that today have no solution, and of course being profitable.
Absolutely. And who will be your customers? Will you sell that directly to the consumers, or do you go B2B to someone else and then reach the consumers?
Well, there are, as always in entrepreneurship, there are many plans. If we will be the company rolling out and executing, there is a first stage in ICU, in intensive care unit. But when we will roll out the final product, it could be in partnership. It could be penetrating first on a very limited space by ourselves. But usually the channel here is B2D to C, business to doctors to consumers.
Okay, yeah. And, you're still developing the product, so it's not sellable yet. When do you expect it to go live and to be used by patients?
Well, in less than 2 weeks, we will have the first interactions with the FDA. And we are very positive, and the feedback from previous interactions are also very good. But of course, there are still a few steps to be performed. Launch is planned 2025. The first launch in ICU is a class 2 medical device, so less regulatory hurdles than other type of launch. And everything at the moment looks green. We finished animal testing. We finished preclinical testing. All the data looks good. So now it's, of course, the classical regulatory path that we have to follow. Yeah. And then, of course, manufacturing and launching.
Absolutely. But, me coming from the software world, this is an unknown world that it can take a long time to actually develop and ship something. That is a big challenge, right, from a company perspective, because you basically also take a big bet that you say, we invest now in this very important, very needed and game-changing product, but at the same time, you don't know if it will actually be sellable 3 years from now.
Well, I think this is the challenge of every entrepreneurship with an idea, with a vision. You don't have the proof. You have to risk. Right. And you have to have, of course, shareholders that accept these risks. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, the leverage is very high if it works. But there is still if. I believe.
Right. That's a classic high risk, high reward case to a certain degree, right? Yeah. Does that make it more difficult for you to attract investors when you say, hey, this is just different than software, for example? It takes longer. Is that harder to attract investors to join your journey?
I wouldn't say it harder. You have to always speak a clear language, being very transparent about opportunities and risks. And then investing is always having a relationships and the parties has to agree. If the other parties agrees, then we have a deal. If not, we don't have a deal.
Right.
Next.
Yeah, absolutely. And are you also able to generate any revenue until you actually finally launch the product? Or is that really you focus on the development, the FDA approval, and the whole process?
Yeah, the Medtech unit of Securecell is not generating revenues. It's really a cash burning case. Which is financed by fundraising, but is also financed from the contribution margins delivered by the Biotech unit. Yeah. So both units. Yeah. And the units are different from the risk profiles when we talk to professional investors. On the other hand, at the moment, there is still a lot of technological cross-pollination because it's a similar case. It's about measuring online real-time with very minor amount of sample blood sugar or sugar in a bioreactor to regulate a process. Yeah. This is not much different. Huh?
Right. Another thing I want to talk about is a program that you recently participated in, launched by the Swiss Stock Exchange. It's called Spark's IPO Academy and prepares companies to go public. So first of all, what motivated you to participate in that program with Securecell?
Well, every entrepreneur has to have different plans and different tracks to follow. So, of course, this is one scenario where you have to be prepared. Six gave this opportunity. Sparks is a good vehicle. Mm-hmm. And we decided to be part of it, and we were invited and selected. Which is, I'm very thankful because the company, in case of, is prepared. Yeah. It knows what to do.
It's good to have the strategic options available, right?
Absolutely.
And what are your main takeaways from the program? What did you sort of learn or, see as opportunity coming out of it?
Well, there are, of course, many items that you have to consider when you think of going public. So putting a catalog now on the table will be a very long podcast. It's important to have a guidance, and that's what the program offers, a clear guidance with clear checklists that you have to tick and in order to be prepared. And of course, one classical, but there are many, one classical when you come into such a plan out of a founder-driven company is governance. Yeah. And this is something that is fundamental, of course, when you go public or if you decide to go public. It should be always. But as a founder, you know that at the beginning, maybe the trade-off between fully governance and being more let's call it entrepreneurial, it's there. So And you cannot have the same degree of freedom once you are public. This is clear. And this is something that everybody has to understand.
I think even the governments could even help you if you don't decide to go public, to go to a new level, right? To a more professional level.
Yes, totally agree.
But what do you think? What companies actually benefit from this Sparks IPO program? Is there any certain vertical or company type or company size that you think would be a good fit?
Well, I think that this is an answer that has to be given by the markets and not by me. I would encourage everybody to participate, sector independent, because it's a very good exercise. We were a few dozen, I don't remember the exact amount, participated to this program, very diverse. So there is of course also some beneficial elements in being in such a diverse environment, because you know other people, you exchange, and you get a lot of inputs that you can then translate for your problem solving.
Yeah. So it's also a really strong network of good companies in the growth stage, basically. Yes. Now, after the program, what are your next steps? Do you get more specific about the IPO plans, or what do you do now after the program?
Well, we have a long list of items to be tackled. Some are to be less prioritized, and some we do prioritize. So we have a priority list, and starting with the high priority elements, we are doing our homeworks and preparing the company for this potential event, which is not happening next week or next month. It will take probably more than a few months, probably years, if it happens. Yeah. But you have to be prepared.
Of course. And if you decide to go public, doing an IPO on Sparks or the 6 main market, what do you hope to gain from it, despite, of course, some investor money, obviously? What would be the benefits of doing that?
Well, it brings the company to another level, to a next level, with pros and cons for sure. But one of the key elements is really being able to grow the company and the whole environment to a next level of performance, a next level of pressure also, because the pressure will be is higher, of course, when you're public. Yeah. And these are some key elements of then motivating everybody to be even more performant, growing, getting better. Yeah. And delivering, because at the end you have to deliver.
Absolutely.
Public or not public, it's about delivering.
True, 100%. You mentioned pros and cons. Maybe we can wrap up the IPO part with that. What are the biggest pros and the biggest cons from your perspective now of going or preparing to go public?
Well, it forces you to discipline. Let's call it governance, but it forces you to discipline. It forces you to think about structure, organization at every level, starting from the board, not only operation. And these elements are well-thought elements that bring always the company to a next level. And alone thinking of that is always a benefit. Yeah. Because it forces you to focus. And of course the cons, when you are public, so nothing more is private.
Yeah.
And then you have to be a little bit more careful, probably. The company's in the spotlight. Does he have more or less or the same entrepreneurship spirit? Yes, I think it's possible. But then at the end, the risk-taking elements play an important role. You have to explain every single risk that you take. And if you are public, then of course there are always somebody that thinks different. So you are more exposed to controversial debates. You are in the press, and some people like that. Others prefer it differently. Yeah. So If you like that, no problem. It's a good thing to do. If you don't like it, you better don't do it.
Right. Yeah. I think that's a good like overview. Pros and cons is with everything, right? There's not like a good or bad. It's just like suitable or not suitable for your journey.
Yeah. And it's a choice that you make.
Exactly.
And having the option is already a good start to being able to choose.
Definitely. Now, if you look into the future, what will be your biggest milestones for 2023 and maybe also beyond that? Because I know you're working hard on the FDA approval. So what will be your focus for the next coming months and years?
Well, yeah, of course, we have a few milestones. If you talk about Securecell specific, right? And we look at the Medtech unit. As I said, the next big milestone is in a few weeks, actually, still in September. Depending on the outcome, of course, option A, B, or the C is relevant. There will be a clinical trial. And then finalizing the development in order to have prototyping or alpha products being ready to launch 2025. This plan is actually defined. On the biotech unit of Securecell business, we just signed a huge contract, which is, of course, a great news.
Congrats.
And thanks. And this is basically now operational excellence and scaling is our focus.
Right. And if we focus on the medtech part of the business, where do you see that market going over the next 5 years? What sort of trends do you see emerging and coming up soon?
Well, there are a few strategic elements that has to be taken in consideration, and that's where we want to go. We want to go with real-time analysis close to the patients. This is different than what is happening today. Today, if you are in treatment, a blood sample is taken. Usually, a huge amount of blood is taken. Then it goes most of the time also in specialized labs, and it takes hours, maybe days until you get a feedback.
Way too long.
Way too long. And our idea is here to be a company delivering system for high frequency data generation with small amount of blood. And the first step is with glucose and lactate in ICU, also in intensive care unit. And then you can add other analytes peu à peu, part of, and of course, the expansion and the growth of the company. So that's our vision, is to be able to deliver technology for real-time data generation at bedside at the patient with minuscule amount of blood.
Wow. And yeah, then there are so many more applications coming out of that. Fantastic. Yeah. So Michele, to wrap up the conversation, we have some rapid fire questions for you. So we either give you different options to choose from or a short question, and you have to answer in one sentence. You ready?
I'm ready, but you will be probably disappointed by the answer.
We'll see. Team player or lone wolf?
Both.
Both? Oh, that's surprising. Why both?
Because it depending on the situation.
Right.
Sometimes you have to go alone, and sometimes you have to be able to be a team player. Actually, personally, of course, I am promoting the idea that to win a Champions League, you have to be a team and you have to work as a team. But there are moments where being alone is also satisfactory. So that's why I say both.
I like that. Bootstrapping or fundraising?
Same answer. Depending.
But your personal preference?
Yeah, you are forcing me to give an answer
I
that
know,
I will not give. If you say both, it's both.
Okay, fair point. 5 years ago, where do you think you were going to be by now? Because I know you like to change, you like to learn new things. So did you have a plan or something in mind?
Yes, I have a plan. I have a life plan. I have a life plan selected or sliced in 3, 5, and 100 years. So I had to go back and see what did I write down 5 years ago. but certainly I brought down to be a place where I like to be, a place where I enjoy contributing, and a place where I can grow.
I think that's where you are right now.
Exactly.
Yeah, great. What is the main advantage of being a Swiss entrepreneur from your perspective?
Well, to have a fantastic environment and settings from every single dimension, and being totally privileged to be in this country. Even if, of course, everybody always says that the risk appetite in Switzerland is not very high. If you want, you can also find a solution here. But everything else is such fundamentally good to be an entrepreneur that this is a privilege, and everybody should be thankful for that.
Yeah, and more people should maybe think about starting their own companies.
Yeah, I think the trend is there.
Right. What's your word of advice to Swiss companies or founders thinking about going public?
Well, first of all, do it, plan it, take advantage of the opportunities that's out there. The Sparks program from SIX is a very good opportunity. It's for free.
Even better.
Even better, right? And as an entrepreneur, you would be completely fool if you don't take these opportunities. So go, take the opportunity, do your analysis, have a plan A, a plan B, a plan C, and be prepared for all three plans, and then execute the one you choose.
Right. The last one for you, it's not on the list that I sent to you, but I'm just curious, Ticino or Zurich?
Both.
Of course.
Of course, both. The roots, of course, are from Ticino, and I love this. I love also here this, and I always tell in the environment I am a very structured person of the South. So I have both. I can have a very structured way of operating, but I love also to be impulsive and also creative and take all the opportunities as they come, and flexible.
So you take the best of both worlds, basically.
I hope so. At least I feel comfortable.
Nice. Michele, thank you so much for coming on the show. Lots of success and many moments of joy with whatever you're building and doing in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Silvan, and the same to everybody else listening to this podcast. A lot of success, a lot of passion, a lot of fire, and enjoy.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, you can support us by rating our show on Apple Podcasts. This way, we can reach an ever-growing number of aspiring entrepreneurs.